Hello everyone, this is Draconics the Hawk. Now in response to the Paul Bunyan banner, this video is going to cover possible folk hero servants that could be added into the game. Now I know this is a bit late, mostly due to some craziness that has been happening towards me as of late. However, with the JP anniversary coming up, it is possible we might get a new folk hero welfare servant if they decide to go with that route instead of possibly rewriting Paul's Bunyan again over there. Interestingly, as I was researching possible folk hero servants, I found that apparently Billy, Geronimo, and Edson count as folk heroes servants. In addition, there's also a bit vague definition of what counts as a folk hero servant. Because of the term of folk hero itself is kind of complex and large, and I found that possible servants such as people from the Revolution, Westerners, and frontiersmen, Native Americans, so right leaders, gang members, and presidents can count as possible folk hero servants. So depending on how well this video is portrayed, I might end up covering those particular areas in the future. Anyway, let's get started with 4 folklore heroes that I've picked out for this video. Up first for our folk heroes, we have Pecos Bill. He is a fictional cowboy, although I did say that I would plan to do Western kind of heroes in a separate video, so in fact that he's more fictional. He fits more in line for this video instead of the video involving frontiersmen and cowboys and Westerners. When he was like an infant, he accidentally fell out of the wagon that he was traveling with and ended up being found and raised by coyotes. When his family found him, they convinced him that he was not a coyote and he was actually a human. After which he decided to become a cowboy, and he would take snakes and use them as whips and lassos. He even would eat TNT, and a more crazier tale was he would even lasso a tornado. And he also even found like a horse that was called Willowmaker, because anybody that tried to actually ride it ended up dying. He ended up not only riding it, but actually breaking and taming the horse. One day during his travels, he meets a woman riding a giant catfish named Suefoot Sue. He ends up falling in love with her to the point that he even shoots out all the stars in the sky, creating the iconic lodestar that ended up remaining just to propose for her. Unfortunately, after he got married, his horse Willowmaker grew jealous that he was not receiving attention, so he bounced her off while she was riding him and ended up sending her straight to the moon. Although some versions she ends up getting rescued from the moon, most versions end up leaving Bill heartbroken and saddened, and the relationship that they had did not last long. Now on towards classes and skills, I see Bill as either a rider or an archer due to obvious reasons, with a quick single target MP. As for skills, basically a quick up or the quick MP. Another skill being the double summon, similar to Semiramis, except it'll incorporate both archer and rider attributes, which will be interesting, having like class advantage in both cavalry and the knight classes. Also, the last skill would most likely be a star generation, in reference to the fact that he shoots out the stars to create the lone star and propose. For his passive skill, most likely riding, due to how he's a possible rider class servant. Up next is John Chapman, also known as Johnny Appleseed. He is primarily known for planting apple seeds throughout the Midwest United States. In addition, he was also religious and kind to children and animals, so expect him to get along with servants such as Kentucky, John, Marfa, and ironically Atalanta if he is added into the game. To Johnny's skills and class, his class would be obviously a caster, given how he goes around planting apple seeds. His MP would most likely be an arch that would be a heal similar to Tamamo's and Iris Fields. For his skills, I see him mostly as a support servant, so his first skill would be a heal buff, his second skill most likely an arch buff, and his first skill would most likely be a star curation, because of how he created apple trees by planting apple seeds, which leads us to his passive skill, which is territory creation, but that is common on caster servants. Like, given how he planted a lot of apple trees, it's most likely going to be around the EX range or A range. Up next is John Henry, an African American folk hero. He was either an ex-slave or an ex-convict, depending on which source you look at. He ended up working for the railroad, and his main job at the time was to help our workers create a tunnel through a mountain by breaking through it with steel hammers. However, the company that John Henry was working under was going to send a steel drill, which would make drilling through the tunnel much more efficient and less costly to do, which in result would cause the workers to lose their jobs along with John Henry. As a result, John Henry decided to challenge the steel drill to the contest to see which one was actually much more efficient. John Henry did win, but unfortunately he ended up dying as a result of the contest because that put too much stress on his body, and John Henry did not take any rest whatsoever to make it through the mountain. In response, John Henry ended up becoming a major folk hero. He now has several folk songs and ballads attributed to him. He's also seen as someone that would fight for the workers. On towards John Henry's class of skills, given that his use of equipment and the fact that he plowed through a mountain at the risk of his own life, it is safe to assume that he would be within the Berserker class and have with Buster MP similar to Arash's, where if he were to use it, it would result in his death. It most likely would be an AoE, maybe even a single target, which would probably be even more interesting to have for like a boss kind of killing. Although if they do go that route, they would have to factor in the break bars for most bosses nowadays. He would most likely have an MP charge skill along with a buster up skill due to reference to the amount of adrenaline that would be required to break through the mountain as crazily fast as he did. Might possibly a guts buff as well for survivability and to help save himself from a rash, but given John Henry's legend, I highly doubt they would put too much emphasis on survivability buffs. But it might be a possibility for a way to keep on around for farming uses. However, it can still fit the overall theme for John Henry, given the fact that it would realistically take someone taking short breaks just to get through the mountain like he did. But knowing John Henry, probably only took breaks to take short breaths before going back and drilling through the mountain like crazy. For his passive skills, it's safe to assume that he would also have a man enhancement skill due to his crazy amount of strength to go for the mountain, and considering the fact he is also a berserker. Up next is Jonathan Lucifer, famously known as Casey Jones. He is famously known as a train engineer that would go at insane amounts of speeds just to make up for lost time. He even is known to have a distinct whistle sound that when people would hear it, they would say, "There goes Casey Jones." He even rescued a little girl that was stuck on the rail tracks at one point, so if he is added into a game, expect servants such as Kentucky and Atalanta to get along with him very finely, similar to how they would with Giant Appleseed if he was added as well. However, what really started his legend was a terrific train accident that happened during a double shift that he was taking. Basically, he was going at an insane amount of speed to make up for lost time since he was over an hour late. And as he was rounding the corner, he was notified that there was a train parked on the railroad track. So to try to save everyone, he did his best to slow down the train and tried to let people know they needed to jump out if possible. However, he ended up dying as a result. However, no one else died that day as a result of Casey Jones's heroic actions to slow the train down. Afterwards, one of his friends did his best to make sure that Casey would remember for his heroic actions. In response, we now have like ballads, similar to like how we have ballads for John Henry to remember Casey Jones for. He even has museums in his honor. For Casey's class and skills, he would obviously be a writer with a quick AoE MP. He would most likely have an evade, a quick up, and an MP charge skill, given the fact how he wants to avoid being late and the same amount of speeds that he would travel to avoid being late. For passive skills, he would have a writing skill since he's obviously a writer. Also a man enhancement skill due to the amount of risk he's willing to take to avoid being late. And that should be it. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what Folkheroes you're looking forward to possibly being added into the game. Or let me know what kind of Folkheroes you want me to cover, or certain topics you want me to cover in terms of regards of history or mythology or urban legends for possible servers to be added into the game, or servers that are currently in the game in general. This is Dragox the Hawk signing out.